You want the good news or the bad news?
Both.
So,
Bad news.
the bad news is that's not your problem. The good news is all cylinders are 150 psi.
Hell yeah.
There we go. Well, you're probably wondering why this thing is back again for the third time. I've sold this car twice, and my buddy Blake just bought it from the guy I sold it to. It's got some issues. Guy only drove it for 400 miles. So it's got 300 miles more on the odometer than when I sold it, because I looked back at my ads and compared it to the odometer. But it's got some issues. I don't know what happened. Number one, an issue we're having is when you go to take off, it's very sluggish, bogs, and sitting in neutral. It's a manual, so if you just have it out of gear and you rev it, it'll rev up really slowly and it'll build almost 8-9 pounds of boost in neutral. And it seems the turbo is getting very hot and boiling the coolant. We're not sure why. But whenever the guy I sold it to had this, he had an issue with the alternator. The alternator went bad, and so I told him to buy the part and I'll install it. And so this alternator is a remanufactured one from AutoZone, and it seems that it must have been bad out of the box, or it went bad after a week or two, because he just let it sit. He did the fuel pressure regulator, alternator, and a main fuel pump under the car in the time he owned it. And after that, it just sat. He didn't really do anything with it. So my buddy Blake bought it from him, and now it's here at my place, so I can work on it and fix it for him. So the issue is, alternator is not charging. The exciter wire here gets 12 volts. When you plug it in, you still get 12 volts on this terminal. But the car is only getting 11.1 volts, and the battery light does not come on in the dash unless I ground the exciter wire. So I called AutoZone, gave them his phone number. That's under warranty. They're going to get us another one. Hopefully it lasts a little longer than a month. We'll see. That's what you get for buying remanufactured parts. I would have stuck with an OEM one and just chucked the new brushes in it. But I'm about to do some more stuff because the alternator won't be here for a few days. I'm going through all the stuff on the interior. I'm checking bulbs. I'm fixing this boost gauge, fixing some wires down here, just trying to tidy everything up. But my IPD parts just came in. Got the fuel filter, in-tank fuel pump, sock, new oil cap seal, new spark plugs, hose for the in-tank pump, and then a new temperature sensor for the fuel injection coolant. And I'm going to swap that stuff in because he said he did the main pump, but I just want to go ahead and do the filter and the in-tank pump with the stock as well. Put some new plugs on it, change that temp sensor, just to get a good baseline, put the new alternator on, and go from there and see what we can figure out. So, to get started on that, well, I'm going to start on the hardest fix this car needs so far, which is the oil cap seal. Now, this is a very dangerous thing. Be very careful when you're doing it. You could mess it up. Sometimes you can install it wrong and your car might explode. You know, things can happen. It's just a very, very... Oh, get some of that oil on there. Very scary thing to install. Might actually need a couple friends to help you with it, but that's fixed. Alright, we got the new pump in, and as you can see, it is a quite a bit bigger of a pump. About 20% bigger, but the hose that comes with it makes up for that difference in the long hose here. So that, and then the sock being replaced. This sock is completely collapsed and just no bueno. So like I said, I'll keep this pump as a spare. It worked fine, so that's cool with me. Go ahead and fish this back into the tank. I don't think these require clamps on here. They just kind of pressure fit. So let's fish this back in. Okay, so right now we're idling. The battery that was in this car is dead, so I pulled the battery out of Scotia. The fuel tank, or the fuel pump's back in, the new one. You can see here we are charging at 14 volts, but that's only because I had to rev it up almost to 5,000 RPM. I'll show you that. And that's kind of weird. It'll flutter like that until I give it some gas. So let's see. That rattling is just another exhaust I have sitting on the side exit, so it's not as loud. You see there, battery light does not come on. Crank it up. It's currently not charging at all, but if I can get it into boost, almost 5,000 RPM, then it starts charging. Very strange. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this alternator's, did that just go up? It should have been going down. Go down. Good job. Let's say this alternator, this remanufactured alternator, is probably bust. There we go. That's my silencer. We had a big windstorm come through, so all my hubcaps fell off the wall. But I'm sure that was long enough to get it hot, and the coolant should be bubbling by now. It is not. Interesting. But yeah, that alternator was replaced when the guy owned it. It's a Duralast from AutoZone, remanufactured, so it's really hit or miss with those, you know. I called AutoZone. They said it's under warranty. I gave them the guy's info, acting like it was me. And so they should have a new one here tomorrow, the 27th. So I'm going to have to pull that pulley off because the alternators don't come with the pulleys. And then take that alternator up there, swap it out, put it on here, and see what happens. That's the only thing I can think of. Because usually alternators on these, when they don't charge immediately after startup, this one did it for a while. I would have to rev it up to maybe 1,000 to get it to charge. And that was because my exciter wire was messed up. And then on Cadence, it was the same way. You'd have to rev it up to like $3,000 for it to charge. And that was because his alternator brushes, I'll show you a picture of what those look like here. So those brushes came out of this car, but his were so worn down. There was like 2 or 3 mil left on there. So I put a new set of brushes that I had laying around for him on his alternator, and that fixed his issue. So something's not right here at all. I don't know if I've showed this, but if I can find my ground wires, here it is. If I ground out my tester, right, and then I take the exciter wire and I ground it just like that, and you noticed that whenever I turned the car on, only the oil pressure light came on and the e-brake light, because the e-brake's on. But when I ground that exciter wire, all the dash lights come on. So we got the O2 sensor, lambda son, oil pressure, battery, brake, park brake, washer fluid, and coolant. Those all come on whenever you ground that exciter wire. Take it off, all you're left with is oil pressure and parking brake. It's really weird. So we're gonna swap out the alternator tomorrow. In the meantime, I need to get the spark plugs, the temp sensor, which is Bosch OEM. Don't ever buy a cheap one of these off Amazon just because it's $16 or $8 next day shipping. Don't do it. I've done it 100 times, and every single time I've been disappointed. They do not work. They ain't worth the shit. Buy Bosch. This was $8, $9, $10 on IPD. It's OEM factory equipment. Buy nothing but that. NGK spark plugs. Bosch fuel filter. So if it has anything to do with the fuel system or the ignition system, I will always buy OEM or better quality and not some cheap Chinese crap. Where I make exceptions to cheap Chinese crap is, a boost controller. That's Chinese crap. An air filter. That's Chinese crap. Mass airflow sensors. That's OEM. It's still going strong. Somehow, on the 4-door blue car, the cheap Chinese mass airflow sensor got us by. So I'm surprised at that. Don't know what brand this fuel pressure regulator is, but I'm hoping it's a good brand because he replaced it. It's probably a Euro part, URO. I do need to check the timing. I had to break apart one of my timing covers to make it work because it would not fit. Here's the top cover. It's for a B23. Actually, I think that's B21. I think I went to that car. And I was just going to install the bottom part. Well, that still didn't fit. So I just broke off the bottom piece there and dremeled it away to where it would fit. And it just barely clears the belt. But it should be enough to where I can get a reading on the timing. If it would focus. Why aren't you focusing? There. It should be enough to where I can get a reading on the timing and adjust the distributor accordingly. So that's what I want to do next. Adjust timing, spark plugs, then do the filter. So let's see what happens. Well, after fixing some timing issues, the 740 is fixed. The distributor was way off, retarded. So now we have full power, boost controller set to 15 pounds. I think it kind of spikes to 20 at sometimes. Oh, nice backfires. So I'm going to turn the boost controller back down to maybe 12 to 13 pounds. Stock is 8 pounds of boost, 7 pounds of boost. So for being a 13C turbo with stock injectors, with just a cold air intake and a straight pipe, no cat, I'd say 12 to 13 pounds is efficient and still fast enough to have fun. When I had this car, I always ran it at 15 to 16 pounds, but it wasn't very efficient for, the size of a small 13C, plus having stock injectors. It just wasn't that efficient. So we're going to turn this boost controller down a couple clicks. be good right there, maybe. Right there, that'll be fine. But yeah, this distributor, I loosened this nut back here, and the distributor was all the way this way. So I turned it all the way that way, set it, and now that weird slow rev up is gone, and the power's back. Still got to replace the alternator tomorrow. That's still giving me an issue. But I'm going to turn this off, let it cool down, do the spark plugs, and then the fuel filter today, and then alternator tomorrow, and then this thing is good to go out of my driveway. It's a fun car. I miss it. I wish I never sold it. And I wish I jumped on the deal. So you can see it's charging now because I revved it up to $5,000. But I wish I jumped on the deal to buy it back for the price that Blake bought it back, because he bought this thing back for more than half of what I sold it for, and it sat for a year and just had 400 miles put on it. So take that with what you will, because I sold this car for $5,500. Yeah, Blake got a hell of a deal buying this car back, especially with all the work that I've done to it before I sold it. Completely resealed motor, refreshed turbo that was rebuilt, all new fucking sensors, this, that, and the other. Everything's been done to this car, so it's going to be a great car for him. The only other turbo Volvo he's had was that black wagon that was on my channel for a while. That was a really knocky motor. Cylinder 4 had like 110 psi, and the others were at like 140, 145. So that motor, running at 15 pounds of boost on that engine, was extremely slow. Well, ran out of space, had to delete some stuff. But yeah, that motor was extremely slow. I think that 8 pounds just kind of... 8 pounds, what am I saying? 15 pounds. That 15 pounds of boost on that low compression motor, worn out motor, was probably just making up for stock boost levels at that point. So that car was really, really, really sluggish. It had a 15G turbo on it and 850R injectors, and even still it took forever to build boost. Probably it's a bigger turbo, yeah, but anyways, this being a 13C, it spools up really freaking fast. I did tell him, you know, if you're going to keep it, go ahead and do injectors, bigger intercooler, do a 3-inch downpipe, and 3-inch all the way back. Just put some mufflers and a resonator on it or something, keep it quiet. And then get it chipped, tuned, whatever. It's LH 2.2, so I don't know what your options are there. Got some kind of alarm going off in the distance. But I'm glad to see this car back. Like I said, I'm glad it's still on the road. I'm glad I was able to fix it again. It was something just simple as the distributor timing had gotten loose, or maybe the other guy had messed with it and wasn't sure what he was doing. Maybe he replaced it and didn't put it on right. Who knows? No big deal. It's all good. So, that's going to be it for this video. I'm not going to record putting the plugs in or the filter. Y'all don't want to see that. Y'all have seen it before whenever I refresh motors, so it's whatever. But now that this is done, I'm probably going to pull one of the two coupes in here and start working on one or the other. I'm not sure. I've been reading up on some K-Jet stuff on how to revive a K-Jet that's been sitting. So I might pull that in here and drain the tank, clean the tank, flush out all the lines, and pull apart the K-Jet stuff and try to clean it. If it doesn't go to plan, fuck it, LH swap. But that's all I got for right now. Enjoy them turbo noises. Those aren't turbo noises. Those are get the fuck out of Dodge noises. So I'm gonna go inside in case a hurricane or a tsunami or something hits. I'll be safe inside.